Live from WTOC, the Southeast News leader. The News Now starts on WTOC Plus.
Welcome to the news on WTOC Plus. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp has declared a state of emergency ahead of anticipated winter weather set to hit the area tomorrow. That declaration activates the State Operations Center starting now, and as the wintry conditions head into our area, county emergency management agencies are preparing their resources. Now, we spoke with Effingham and Bullock counties on how their emergency management agencies are responding. Effingham has seen this before, and their management agency is readying back up for the snow. Deputy Director Shauna Smith says they're using the skills they learned from last year's snow and icy conditions to better educate citizens this time around.
I just encourage people to stay off the road because we had a lot of single rollover accidents last year. Just driving, the vehicles are top heavy, some of them, so they tend to roll really easily. So just trying to make sure that we have safe roadways because, people do have to work.
Bullock County's director, Corey Kemp, says everything went smoothly last year during the snowfall. He plans to tell people to avoid going out in the icy conditions and take precautions around bridges, which are the first to freeze over. And speaking of state roads, we could have some pretty slick roads this weekend. Georgia Department of Transportation crews are gearing up for the threat of snow. Across the state, the DOT has replenished nearly 2 million gallons of brine from this past weekend. There are 570 snow removal units now being mobilized. And people in the Low Country are finding ways to prep for the possible winter storm coming into the area this weekend as well. Several people visited hardware stores yesterday in preparation for the weather. We visited one of those stores in Bluffton. Folks were searching for faucet covers and plant blankets to keep important items around their home warm. Others were buying sand and salt to use to melt the ice and snow if it decides to visit. One person tells us that he hasn't worried about the snow, but he is worried about the ice. He recommends that everyone take the same precautions.
My best advice as a retired police officer of 30 years is for people to stay at home. Load up on the essentials and get a good book, movie, etc., and stay at home.
I just got a few new books this past week myself. Beaufort, Jasper, and Hampton counties say they are currently monitoring the system and are creating plans that will be used if the need arises. Well, Georgia representatives are introducing 2 new bills to stop HOAs from taking homes. Anastasia Almos with our sister station has an investigation that reveals thousands of homeowners face the possibility of losing their homes under current Georgia law. These bills would make that illegal.
Tell you the truth, your series on this issue has put a lot of heat in this house.
Georgia representatives are introducing 2 HOA oversight bills, crediting Atlanta News First Investigates series HOA Nightmares for putting heat in the house.
Your story has helped us flesh out the real need.
The series unveils the grim reality for many Georgia homeowners. They face thousands in fines for minor violations like not pressure washing homes, leaning mailboxes, or faded shutters. Current Georgia law allows an HOA to place liens on homes for unpaid fees and even file to foreclose when that lien exceeds $2,000. And there's no state agency that oversees an HOA board's actions.
An HOA could be so strong and could just literally tear a home down. A home, a neighborhood, your property. This is our retirement.
House Reps Sandra Scott, Kim Schofield, and Viola Davis are leading the charge on 2 bills. HB 1036 would allow homeowners to vote to dissolve their community association, specifically require HOAs to share financial records and ban them from retaliating against homeowners. They would also ban HOAs from foreclosing on homes for unpaid fines and fees.
I had an 80-year-old woman crying, 80 years old, saying she have nowhere to go, and they're trying to take her home for assessment fees. That should never happen in Georgia. Her home is paid for.
The other bill, HB 1035, would apply to all homeowners. Even if you don't live in an HOA, it ensures a home cannot be taken for unpaid utilities, HOA fees, or other non-tax bills.
You had dropped a couple bills regarding HOAs in the past. What makes this year different?
The number of people that are being impacted. I don't know how lawmakers can bury their head in the sand when people are hurting.
Turning now to national news that's hitting close to home for some. Organizers in Savannah are joining a nationwide protest over recent ICE raids and reported civilian deaths tied to federal operations in Minnesota. A grassroots effort called the National Shutdown is asking people nationwide to skip work, school, and shopping for a day. It's what supporters describe as a general strike against recent ICE actions and to push for changes in immigration policy. Here in the hostess city, local activists are planning a rally tomorrow at noon in Forsyth Park to build support in solidarity with similar actions in Minnesota and across the country. We should also note right now students at GSU's Savannah campus are in a walkout right now over ICE actions in Minnesota as well. Our Cam McCann is on scene. He'll have the latest for that coming up at 3 o'clock. In Washington, D.C., Senate leaders are scrambling to avoid a government shutdown ahead of a midnight deadline to pass funding measures. Reed Binion has the latest.
We're working on that right now. I think we're getting close.
President Donald Trump expressing hope for a government funding deal ahead of the Friday deadline to avert a shutdown. Senate leaders reached a deal to fund critical agencies through September, but the agreement only provides temporary funding for the Department of Homeland Security, which includes Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Instead, funding DHS for 2 weeks while the parties debate broader reforms for ICE.
We need to rein in ICE and end the violence.
Democrats want DHS funding to come with changes to ICE tactics, including tightening the use of warrants, ending roving patrols, making ICE agents remove masks and wear body cameras, and enforcing a code of conduct comparable to force policies for state and local law enforcement. Even if the Senate votes Friday, final passage could be delayed till Monday, when the House of Representatives returns from recess. That makes a partial government shutdown likely this weekend, less than 3 months after the end of a record-long full shutdown. Several agencies have already been fully funded for the rest of the year, so this shutdown would look different. For example, there wouldn't be a risk of tens of millions of people losing SNAP benefits, but it could have an impact on air travel, and federal workers could miss paychecks. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are hoping that won't happen.
There's a lot of earnest work going on in a bipartisan way to try to avert a shutdown.
I'm Reed Binion reporting.
In travel news, if you're flying this weekend, you might want to check your driver's license first, because starting Sunday, if you don't have one of those Real ID licenses or a passport, it's going to cost you extra to get on the plane. About 150,000 people each day go through TSA without a compliant Real ID. CBS's Chris Van Cleef reports.
When Raquel Washington flew to Las Vegas for her birthday in November, the New Jersey resident didn't have a Real ID when she got to TSA.
They made it pretty easy for us to come through without our Real ID. I think they just scan our fingerprints pretty much just to determine who we are.
But the next time she flies, she may have to pay the TSA $45 as part of the agency's new TSA Confirm ID program launching Sunday. Passengers with non-compliant forms of identification must go to a TSA website, sign up, and pay the fee before they can access security. But that fee is only good for 10 days.
If I don't have a Real ID and I don't pay this fee, will I be turned away at the checkpoint?
You could be in risk of not making your flight.
TSA Executive Administrator for Security Operations, Steve Lawrence.
Why is it necessary to charge somebody $45 for this?
Absolutely. We want to make sure that the system is modernized. We want to make sure that we're covering down on the latest technology. We're also ensuring that in this situation, this cost is not bared by the taxpayers. This cost is bared by the individual that doesn't have a Real ID compliant driver's license.
New signage with a QR code is going up at airport checkpoints. Flyers can pay on the spot at the airport if necessary. After years of delays, the TSA began requiring flyers to show a Real ID, typically a driver's license with a star like this, or other approved forms of identification like a passport, military, or tribal ID last May.
94% of flyers have a compliant ID. TSA says they shouldn't see anything different. But for folks that have paid this fee, they advise allotting 15 to 30 minutes to get through security, more if you're going to do it at the airport on the spot. This is a clear effort to push people to get their real IDs as soon as possible. Chris Van Cleve, CBS News, Phoenix.
All right, well, before we sign off this afternoon, we want to end on a positive note today because more than 1,000 volunteers are out right now spreading the joy of reading and putting books into the hands of thousands of children across our communities. United Way of the Coastal Empire's Read United Day is happening right now. Volunteers are headed out into elementary classrooms across the Coastal Empire to read aloud to pre-K through second grade students. Each classroom will also receive a brand new book to take home. Organizers say the effort is expected to reach more than 20,000 children, helping build early literacy and a lifelong love of reading. Today's readers include Team WTOC, as you can see on our screen. Mike Sela was out earlier this afternoon. We heard from Aaron Dixon earlier today on WTOC Plus as well. He read a book about a dinosaur to some kids in Richmond Hill. Very cool. Well, coming up in just over an hour here on WTOC Plus, we have this week's episode of Governing Georgia. Every Friday at 2:30 on WTOC Plus and the WTOC Facebook, we're taking you under the Gold Dome to break down the bills moving through Georgia's capital that impact you, your family, and your communities. You can join us for this week's 15-minute special right here at 2:30. And coming up in 15 minutes, we'll have the First Alert Weather Show with Andrew Gordon. He'll be breaking down the snow that's set to start falling in about 24 hours across parts of the region. It's something that our forecasters continue to keep an eye on, something we will continue to follow throughout this evening with the latest forecast as more watches and warnings continue to come into the area. Again, Governor Kemp declared a state of emergency at about 11 a.m. this morning. 11:04, I believe, is when it was officially put out, so that's something we're following. Also want to note programming-wise, tomorrow when we are expecting the snow, we will be live at the top of the hour from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. every hour on the hour right here on WTOC Plus and the WTOC Facebook page. We want to keep you all updated and informed on when we expect snow to fall, where snow's falling. So we'll have our full team of meteorologists. We're bringing in extra reporters to cover this incoming snow as much as we can, just to keep you all informed. So a lot of coverage tomorrow, both right here on WTOC Plus and live on the WTOC Facebook. With that, we'd like to thank you all for watching, and for the next 15 minutes, here's Local News Live.